this back a little bit, or is that it?
Yes,
okay,
you
yeah,
can.
thank
Wherever
you.
it was started.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here with you, and I just want to get into what I'm going to say. First of all, Tina, we met what, in March, February?
Yeah,
through a mutual friend, Terry Beatley. And so a lot of you may know her here. I want to just let you know, because I heard there's a lot of pastors and people of ministry. And that was a good intro, by the way. I was looking around to see who he was talking about. Anyway, my husband and I pastor in Ohio. We are in the middle of Dayton and Cincinnati. And I want to tell you what I told these ladies. I was in Cleveland, Ohio yesterday meeting with a Christian Mennonite, modern Mennonite's what he calls himself, a Christian businessman who wants to help fund the event that I'm going to tell you about. He's a born-again Christian. You know what his ministry is? He owns the biggest leather company in the nation. But his ministry is going to NASCAR on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays before the races. And thousands of people come and he preaches the gospel to them. And they get saved. So God's doing a lot of that stuff. You need to connect up with him. We ought to come to Washington. He's going to be there. But I just want to share with you real quick. The Lord has done something that I never expected. My husband and I, we pastor. It's probably around 400 people. It's not a real big church. I was born into a pastor's home, married into a pastor's home, and now we pastor, which makes me no better or no worse than anybody else, but it's just what my life has been. 2 sons, one married, lives in Virginia Beach. I'll never get to see him. Something happens when they get married, don't it? But anyway, in 2015, 3 nights in a row, I was awakened with 3 different words, and I know it was from the Spirit of the Lord. The first night, it was awake, arise, advance. The second night, it was honeybee. And the third night, Deborah. D-E-B-O-R-H, Deborah. So, being that I teach the Word and I do a lot of series teaching in our church, I figured it was just another series, and I do a lot of word study and get messages a lot like that, teaching series. As I began to study it, and this was a year before what happened. As I began to study it, I saw that Deborah, who was the first female judge that got appointed over Israel, the 4th judge, but the first female, she was the first one to use the word awake in Judges chapter 5. Her name means honeybee or speech. She was a prophet, judge, intercessor, military strategist. She was a wife and a mother. And God anointed her and called her and set her apart to lead the nation of Israel. And she led that nation for 40 years. And those 40 years, there was peace in Israel.
That's right.
When she became the judge, she said in Judges 5 and 12 or 13, I believe, it says, village life had ceased. And she repeats it, village life had ceased until I, Deborah, arose. I arose as a mother in Israel. That she wasn't saying that in a prideful way. She just realized that God's hand was upon her life and that He had called her to a specific ministry and a specific office and task. There's special anointing, and she had to stand up and begin to move in what God had called her to. And while she did what God said, her nation of Israel was at peace. Well, I still didn't realize exactly why I was studying all this, but I just I studied on the honeybee and what all the nature of a honeybee is. They work in groups. They're very loyal. They're very busy. They work hard. They work way ahead of time, and when, for their supply, when they're not going to be able to work, they work ahead to stay ahead. They're very vision-oriented, visual-oriented, just all kinds of things. I began to realize that this was an anointing, really, that God wanted to put upon, especially the women of the last day church. And I continued to study all about this. Awake, arise, advance, be Deborah. A year ago this past January, there were some women who had a march in Washington. And I began to watch it on TV because at first I thought it might be for some things that really needed to be spoken to, some issues. But as I watched it, I heard them say things that I didn't agree with, But that's not what bothered me as bad as hearing them say, we speak for the women of this nation. And I said, no, you don't. And I know thousands and thousands of other women that you don't speak for. That's not my voice. And I heard in my spirit, then where is your voice? Where is your voice? That evening, my spirit was agitated all day, really. I was speaking the next morning, and I couldn't really study. I was just saying, God, what is this? What is this agitation I feel? And that evening, how many ever gets on Facebook? Anybody in here? Don't be ashamed. We use it for good stuff. I don't use it for some of that other stuff. But anyway, I got on there and I said, how many women want to go stand with me in Washington and say who we belong to and who we are because of who we belong to? And immediately, it was unbelievable, the numbers of women that came back and said, let's go. We'd like to do this. I'm ready. Let's go. It was so many, it totally got my attention. Of course, my husband was sitting over there, and I said, oh my goodness. He said, what have you done? I said, I don't know. But anyway, one thing led to the other. And real quick, I'm not going to tell you everything that happened because it's just a God thing. But so I said, I began to meet pastors' wives. That's how I met Marty. Been over a year ago. Her and her husband were pastoring in town. And I just began to meet with pastors' wives and Christian businesswomen and women of faith that I knew and told them my heart, asked what they, what do you feel about that? And every one of them said, we have to. It's time that we as Christian women have a voice. And I said, okay, what are we going to do? And they said, well, you figure that out. We just pray for you. So I said, well, just start having meetings and stuff, just have meeting after meeting. And we did. It's gone national. I've been in 22 rallies since February in different states. Well, there's been 2 or 3 in Kentucky. I know what y'all said about Kansas, and that is so true, but they're saying that about themselves in Kentucky, too. Just about everywhere I go. Everybody is sensing this. God getting ready to do something with his people, with his church. There's such a move that's coming to this nation. I really feel that. And so what has happened is September 29th, in less than 2 months, we've been working on this for a year and a half. September 29th, we will be on the Washington Mall in Washington, D.C. between 9 and 4 p.m., 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. I represent, standing right here, tens of thousands of women that are going to be there that have already committed and registered. Christian women, socially conservative women, and also men are coming and they want to bring their sons and daughters. Gigi Graham is Billy Graham's eldest daughter. You've not heard a lot about her. She's going to be a speaker. I was just with her 3 weeks ago. She's going to tell her story. She said, I'm Billy Graham's daughter, but I've made wrong choices when I was young. And it sent my life in different directions. But I've learned the mercy and the grace of God, and I'm ready to tell my story to the nation, to see people come to God. We're having some nationally known speakers to help draw, you understand that. Kay Arthur is going to be there, CeCe Winan is going to, we were going to have Priscilla Shirer, but, since what's happened with their family and some different conflicts, it's not going to be able to happen with her, but it will in the future. We have a lady, Rebecca Alonzo, who's going to speak. Can I share her story real quick? Because I'm not sure how much time I have. We have a lady also who's going to speak named Tina Mann. She's going to be one of the speakers in Washington. That's why we met last. Terry Beatley is going to speak. There's going to be, I don't know how many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pastors' wives, and many of them will be praying over the nation. Have you ever heard of Awaken the Dawn? Lou Eagles works in that, and David's Tents, that's in Washington 24/7. We're all going to be partnering that day because everybody's going to be there. So there'll be thousands and thousands of people there. It's going to be a Christian Jesus Day in our nation. TBN is going to stream it live. It'll be TBN or Cornerstone. We're going to have worship teams from different places. We're going to have youth drama teams and worship dance. We're going to have intercessory prayer, special speakers. I'm going to tell you 2 of the stories. With one of the ladies, y'all have had her here, I think, Janelle Guzman. She was the very last person to come out of the first Twin Tower. She was brought out, the last one brought out alive. And her story is amazing. She was buried in that rubble for 20 hours.
Wow.
And when she was buried, she heard a voice that said, try to stay calm. I'm here to get you out. My name is Paul. Finally got her out, brought her out. She's looking around for Paul, asking where Paul is. And they tell her, there is no one named Paul. That was an angel.
Yeah.
And so but here's the thing. She was born in Trinidad. She now lives in this nation. And she goes around the world giving her testimony. And when she was in that rubble, she said, God, I don't really know you. I don't know anything about you. But if you'll get me out of here alive, whatever this means, I'll do whatever you want. She got out alive. And now her whole life is given to God. And she lives in Long Island, New York. And she is going to be one of the speakers. Another speaker that nobody knows, but it's powerful, her name's Rebecca Alonzo. Her parents were pastors, and they lived in a small town and pastored a church. She was 8 years old. She's written a book called The Devil on Pew 7. Y'all can smile because we could all probably wrote that book. But anyway, The Devil on Pew 7. The reason she wrote the book is because when she was 8 years old, in her dad's church, there was a man that sat on Pew 7 and hated her mom and dad. And he set dynamite around their house 10 times.
Oh my goodness.
And her brother was 2 years younger or older than her. She was 8. And one day, this man who hated her parents had hired a hitman, and he busted in their home, and she saw her mom murdered and her dad shot, and he had a breakdown. From that point on, she was adopted by her aunt and had to learn a life of forgiveness and what it means to forgive. And she said Dr. Phil 2 or 3 years ago called her and her brother wanting her to be on. You know how he got a hold of her? The man that shot her mom and dad was now out of prison and wanted to apologize to them on national TV. But her words to me were, we could not have gone and done that except that we had learned what true forgiveness was through the Word of God and His presence.
That's right.
My story is that when I was a younger girl, my father and my mother were pastors, as I've said, pastored in a pretty large church. And this is in the late 70s. So you're 1,400 in that time frame, which would be a very large church in that day. Anyway, we were excited. Just long story short, my dad was being called all over the nation and into different nations to preach and hold conferences. So his little hometown, London, Kentucky, called him. You know where that's at?
It's the south part, right?
Yeah, it's south to eastern, kind of, Anyway, they called him to come preach in his little home church he grew up in. So as a family, we all went. My mom and dad drove down. My younger brother, 15, rode with them. Me and my brother were at Miami University, so after our classes on Friday, we drove down. My dad had gotten his private pilot license and went into partnership with 2 businessmen in our church so that he could quickly get to wherever he was going to preach and get back home because of the responsibility there and plus family. So they had flown down there. It took 45 minutes, and he had flown the airplane. So we were together at church on Friday night, and Saturday morning my mother went back. And the rest of us were, me, my 2 brothers, my dad, were coming back with my dad after service that night. About 3:30, a friend of mine who I did not even know was in London, Kentucky, called me and said, would you come and ride with me? Can I pick you up? Would you go home with me? I hate to drive home by myself. I said, well, let me go ask my dad because he loves us to be in church with him. I went and asked him. He said, yeah, you can do that, sis. It's okay. I'll have the boys with me. So she picked me up. My dad walked me out to the car. It was raining. He wanted to just go take my luggage, and we said goodbye, and he watched me outside. It's the last time I saw my dad, because that night my dad and 2 brothers were in a crash, and all 3 killed at one time. My life changed in a flat second. In a split second. I was no longer a pastor's daughter. I no longer had a dad. I no longer had brothers. My dad was going to be 41 December 5th, and it was October. My other brother was 19, had just signed a recording and a songwriting contract with Word in Nashville, Tennessee for gospel contemporary music. And my little brother was 15, and he loved children, and he always said he wanted to be a doctor. But after all the services and everything was over, one day we went up in the room, just began to clean some things, me and my mother, and look around. And his bed was between the wall, was against the wall, and we pulled it out to look, and there was tithing envelopes laying all across the floor with messages, sermons that he had outlined, which we didn't even know he was thinking that direction. He had pledged, I don't know how many hundreds of dollars to missions work that year, and all summer long he had mowed yards to raise that money. And we found a shoebox in his closet filled with money, and it said on it, "My missions pledge paid in full." My mother and I got that shoebox and took it to the church and paid his pledge in full. That's what my life has been. My plan was to be in that airplane. God had another plan.
Right.
But yet I dealt with that. I dealt with guilt. Why am I still here?
Yeah.
Why, all of those things that you go through. I've dealt with the anger of it all.
Sure.
When I walked Tuesday night before we went to visitation, I was so angry. I was so angry. I didn't want to hear the word family. And of course I had friends there who helped me and prayed with me, and I began to learn to let go of those things. But you go walking in a church where your dad's pastor and built that work, and you see 3 caskets lined across the front with just pictures on it.
Yeah.
It started to come on me again. And I just had to keep pushing anger away. I was young. I wasn't who I am now, that I understand how to quote the word and all those things we do. But I don't care how much you know how to quote it, you still deal with things.
Right, you're right.
And so my whole life now at this point, my mother passed in 2007. I'm the only one left in my immediate family, married 2 sons. But God's family is my family.
Yeah.
And I've gotten so much healing from God making connections and relationships. And so when this happened in January, see, I believe our nation is at a crossroads.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Some are following Antichrist spirit,
Yes.
and some are following the Spirit of the Lord. I want to follow God in His Word. And I believe that I don't understand everything about my life. You don't understand everything about your life. But I believe that we as women must arise.
Yes.
Not as just natural mothers, that has to be,
Yeah.
but as spiritual mothers in our nation.
Yes.
That we can pray, that we show up, that we stand together.
Right.
We're not critical, we're not judgmental, or
Right.
none of that day. Nobody's mad, nobody's angry. We're just saying, here's where I was in this darkness, in this pain, this trial. Because everybody's got a story.
Yeah.
Everybody in here has one.
Right.
But because of who I belong to, Jesus,
Yeah.
I'm now healed.
That's right.
And I'm on the road to wholeness. See, there's a difference in healing and wholeness. And that's what your book's about. And that's what connected us on the phone the first time we ever talked. You could sense divine connection. And now, because of the wholeness aspect, I'm turning around into the generations behind me, and I'm saying, look, I want to teach you and train you and disciple you, and I want to lead you into your purpose and into your destiny. And that's what this event in Washington is all about. The man yesterday was a very, very wealthy man, worth millions. And he said to me, I've looked at the website. We are on, you need to write this down, deborahsvoice.net. If you don't know that, deborahsvoice.net. Go in there. There's a GoFundMe if you want to help us, because things like this are very expensive. You want to be a part, register. I think they're getting a bus together in this area to go, so you need to check with them. It's going to be a nation-changing event. I really feel that. Not because of me or one person. People said Diane's movement. This is not my movement. This is all about the kingdom of God.
That's right.
This is about us Christians saying we have a voice, and we're going to speak and who we belong to. And I thank you for this opportunity to share this. You can go on that website, deborahsvoice.net. We're also on Facebook. You can like us on that. There's so much going on. It's so coming so fast now. We've been working so hard. It's been nonstop for a year, besides helping my husband. And I do want to say this, and I say this everywhere I go. If it was not for my husband, I could not do this. And we are one in this. And yesterday, he goes to all the meetings, because besides the rallies, we've had a lot of informational meetings like this. And then I've met with a lot of business people, traveled here and there in different places. And when he goes, sometimes he can go and sometimes he can't. And when he can't, I just don't feel that covering good, you know. But when he's there, I'm like, thank you, Jesus. Just go take it. So I just want to say, I honor you brothers, and I would love for you to be there. The man's name yesterday is Stephen Winfield. No. Look it up real quick, because you need to look out about him, because you need to be. You just look like one of those people, the ministry outside the walls. You really do. I said, you're like my husband. I know. I said, you're a man's man. You know. Steve Wing, Wingfield. Steve Wingfield. Look him up. It's awesome what he does. But he said to me yesterday, he said, I have the heart of this. He said, our spirits are connected. I'm connecting with you and your husband. And he said, I'm going to cause this to be successful for you. And he don't know what he was saying, because as of yesterday, we needed $200,000 to just pull this off. And it's how many weeks? 7 weeks? And he said that yesterday, and I got in the car and fell on the floorboard, and all my husband just sobbing and crying and thanking the Lord, because this is something he is doing. And you may be sitting there saying, I can't go, I can't do that. Yeah, you can. You can do it. And we got to stand together as the church. Stand together as the church. So thank you for allowing me to share this with you.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
We're having our rally here.
Okay, you want to talk about this?